Hi, Anthony.
Hello, Claudine.
Today we're talking about federal tax liens.
Yes.
So, what is a tax lien is the first question.
What is a tax lien? Well, a tax lien is something that exists, but what is a federal tax lien is it's actually the federal tax lien is a federal notice of tax lien because a tax lien already exists.
Mm-hmm.
A tax lien between you and the IRS exists the second you make a dollar. Every dollar. Right now, you might make a dollar. Maybe you're at work. You're watching this.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a federal tax lien attaching. Now, that is between you and the IRS.
That's crazy.
Right. No, it's crazy. So it's like that's how people need to think of the IRS. They're in everything you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that's why I say it's like we can have a limited federal government or we can have an income tax. You can't have both because if a dollar you make right when you make it is subject to of someone else, doesn't seem to be a real strong property right there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. The tax liens exist. A federal notice of tax liens is notice to everybody in the world that you owe the IRS money. So that's how it really works. It's actually not a federal tax lien that's filed. It's a federal notice of tax lien.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it includes all your property, real estate, personal property, financial assets,
Right.
everything.
Anything you may have that the IRS thinks they have a claim in, it could be subject to. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the steps to the IRS putting a tax lien or the notice of tax lien is they put your balance due on the books. They assess your liability. Right. They send you a bill that explains how much you owe. This is called the notice and demand for payment.
Right.
And then finally, if you neglect or refuse to fully pay the debt in time, that's when they can kick in the tax lien.
Right. And that's actually the typical way. But there, of course, with the IRS is they have other ways too. So sometimes you can ignore that entire thing because, I think we'll go into some of the other ways they can do it too in a little bit because that's the general way. But just like anything, they can kind of do what they want. Congress has given them fairly unlimited power. It's very hard. And tax liens, it is something that the taxpayer advocate has spoken out against, that the IRS is really abusive with these tax liens. And it sort of doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay. So somebody doesn't have any assets, and usually that's what it is. They can't afford to pay you. So your idea to get them to pay you is to destroy their credit. And we found through our own history, clients of ours have told us like your credit score takes about 100 points of a hit.
Oh, wow.
So dropping someone's credit score, making it harder for them to borrow money, making it harder for them to get a job is somehow going to help you get money from them. And it's basically you're putting your boot on the neck of them. And so it's a really, really nasty thing. And of course, it's public knowledge. And once you have a federal tax lien, you are going to get inundated with junk mail. From all sorts of people. That's usually how people actually find out they have one because the junk mailers are on the list quicker than the IRS is going to send you notice.
Wow.
Right. They're right. They want to be the first one to send you their junk mail. So someone's like, I don't have a federal tax lien. And then I'm getting another one. Wait, what's going on here? And then you see the notice from the IRS. Hey, we filed a federal tax lien against you. Here's your appeal rights. It's really screwed up because with the notice of levy, the IRS says, "Hey, look, we're going to levy you. Here's your appeal rights." This one's we filed the lien. Here's your appeal rights, and really, that's something you want to use as your appeal rights when you do get that. You have a limited amount of time, of course, somewhere buried in that notice that says you have 30 days from the date of the notice to file that.
So, is it possible to get a federal tax lien removed?
Of course.
Is it easy?
No.
I figured with the IRS.
No.
Now let's talk about some common misconceptions about federal tax liens. People think that the lien is automatically attached to the address that the property that the letter's mailed to.
Yeah.
That's not true.
That's not true, right? And this is sort of a common kind of call that we can get. A parent calls their adult son or daughter is living in the basement or whatever they're doing, and they're calling, freaking out. Hey, and then like they're retired and they're freaking out because there's a federal tax lien against them. My stupid son's living here and he ran up a tax bill of $100,000, $200,000, and now I'm going to have a problem. I'm going to have to refinance the house to pay this off. And the question is like, well, does your son own the house? No. Well, no, it doesn't attach. It's unlike other liens that people may be familiar with. The judgment lien, a mechanics lien, is something that's going to describe the property. There's going to be a property description to say this is what it attaches to. A notice of federal tax lien is just mailed somewhere. It may attach to that house if somebody has a property interest. A lot of times, though, if someone's underwater in the house, it's like, well, you're not going to, there's not going to be a super priority lien that jumps ahead of everything else. Unlike property taxes, Okay, so I get it. It gets confusing. Property taxes are a super priority lien that will leap ahead of any other encumbrance.
Okay.
So if you have a first mortgage, it can leap ahead. That's why your mortgage company is going to say, you know what? Glad we're doing the mortgage, but we're just going to require an escrow. We're going to hang on to your tax money, to your property tax money, to make sure it's paid. Because if it's not paid, their entire security interest is gone.
Wow.
Because the town could come in and foreclose, and that happens a lot. And it happens more in residential real estate. It doesn't happen so much. Commercial property happens because sometimes the commercial lender won't be requiring an escrow. But you really should check up on that to make sure it's getting paid, because that could be a rude surprise.
Yep. Now, common misconception number 2, the IRS has to wait for you to file your return before they can put a lien on you.
Right. And and I think the misconception is basically from the own IRS's website. As you mentioned before, hey, look, and this is what the IRS has to do. It has to put a balance on the books, send you a bill, and you neglect to refuse to pay it. Well, one of the most interesting tax liens ever filed was one against the Reverend Al Sharpton. And he had a tax lien for a bit of money filed against him. And this was the first time I actually ran into it, because you kind of have to be doing something a little extreme. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at the tax lien, and I think it was for 2011 or 2009 was the bill. It was the tax lien for the year filed, but it was 2009 or 11 that I was looking at. I was like, wait a second, how's this possible? And then I was looking into it, and it's called a jeopardy lien. If the IRS feels that, you're doing something really shady here, and we better file a lien on you, or otherwise we will be frustrated from later on putting this lien on, because you're going to do some fraudulent conveyance. It's going to make it a nightmare.
Yep.
They can do a jeopardy lien. And those are pretty serious things. Usually they're done by the highest level of revenue officer in very interesting cases, the more difficult cases to solve. There are jeopardy levies as well. Those tend to be a little bit more common. Somebody alerts the IRS, hey, look, this person has this money. If you don't get it, you're probably never going to get it. The IRS will sort of jump ahead of the typical assessment. They'll just say, hey, look, we think it's this. If you disagree, file your appeal. Tell us,
Right. Now, is there a minimum amount?
Well, I would say, according to the IRS, there is, but really there isn't. We saw they changed some of their strategies, but
I think even on their website it says, I read something saying anytime we feel it's warranted.
Right. And
so there's sort of a threshold, but
if we feel different, which they may feel different. Years ago, I was in our town hall right across the street from us, and I was just going through. I don't know what I was looking up, and I was flipping through, and then I noticed a federal tax lien. And I said, well, this is for $40. And I was like, what? They're filing a notice of federal tax lien against someone for $40? And I went to talk to the town clerk. And I asked her, I said, just a question for you. Does the IRS have to pay recording fees like the rest of us do? They said, oh, yeah. They sent us a check. I said, well, correct me if I'm wrong, $40 lien. And I showed it to her. I said, it's a $53 to record this. She says, yes. Now I said, assuming the taxpayer pays this $40, now they have to file a release of federal tax lien, right?
Is that another
$53? It's just like, yes. So I haven't seen so many of those $40 liens, but they were going lien crazy. They were just slapping them on everybody. After the financial crisis, where so many people, the issue we were seeing there is people upside down in their house, overextended, and that's really where we saw the IRS thought. I think their conception of the financial crisis was that everybody will bounce back. Let's get our claim in. And it was like the bouncing back didn't happen. No. It doesn't have to happen. You think it's going to, but no, it could just sort of be crappy for a good long time.
That elastic is stretched.
Right. So that was something. So they just sort of backed off. And I think the taxpayer advocate, who's Nina Olson, who really has been great. This is been one of her big issues here, is trying to get a little bit of common sense with the tax liens. They really haven't been following all of her advice. So it is really a nasty thing. It's a really, really nasty way the IRS is. And this is why you're trying, one of our points that we're always trying to make is the IRS is not on your side. They will file a federal tax lien to screw you over. And that's what it is. It's not helping you. And really, in so many cases, it's not helping them.
No.
This is not going to help them at all, but they're ruining you, and it's really punitive. And they've told me that. We want to punish the taxpayer.
Yeah.
All right, well, you want to punish the taxpayer. So how does that help you get money?
Oh, they're just bullies.
Yeah.
All right. So there are a few things you have to do to qualify to have your lien withdrawn. You have to satisfy your tax liability. You have to be compliant.
Generally, that's done.
Oh, generally.
Generally, right.
Okay, we'll talk more about that in a moment.
Yeah.
You have to be compliant.
Yeah.
This is basically with any IRS issue, one of the most important things. You have to be current. And this is where we've seen issues come up with the IRS as well. They can make simple human errors coding in their system where you're current, but their system says, oh, no, you're not current.
Right.
You've satisfied your tax liability, but their system says, nope, haven't satisfied tax liability. And you continue to get the stream of notices. And you actually had an instance where the revenue officer made some sort of screwed somebody over.
Well, yeah.
We don't know if it was
and it's also,
intentional
I would say, the client screwed him over too. That's what the client screwed himself over because he didn't take the IRS seriously as a risk. And now we have a great video out there, a great webinar of the hidden ways the IRS is going to screw you over. This made the list.
Yeah.
This one made our list, and it goes something like this: the taxpayer owed the IRS some money. He had a securities license, and typically, if you have a securities license, your Series 7, 63, that's something that's reportable to FINRA. Okay, and if you say, hey, look, if you file this lien, it's going to impact my ability to earn. I really can't make money. And I've had mixed results with this. I've put in installment agreements to say, hey, look, this person has securities. No, we don't know why. We don't know. Then finally I get to appeal to the right person. They're like, oh no. We were definitely not going to file it. I'm like, finally somebody understands it. And once you get to the right person, it's very easy. But getting to that right person can be the challenge. So that's usually how it's done. You're like, here's the installment agreement. Don't file a lien. And so this taxpayer was approached by a revenue officer. And instead of getting an attorney, okay, because that would be a waste of money. Because that'd be a complete waste of money. The guy owed $150,000. Any money you're going to pay to an attorney, well, you're just better off giving the IRS. Oh, sure, right? Because you're reasonable. The IRS is reasonable, and you're reasonable. So the two heads should meet, and those nasty attorneys with all their attorneying, they're just going to waste time and cause problems.
And
right?
I'm your friendly revenue officer. I'm going to bring you a cup of coffee.
I'll bring
we'll be buddies.
So that's really like, and he still likes the guy. He still likes the revenue officer. I like the revenue officer, but I know what they're going to do. So he said, here's my installment agreement. This is what I want to pay. Don't file a lien against me. Revenue officer says, sure. Okay. And this is what happened. The installment agreement is sitting on a revenue officer's desk for months. It's not even, then it moves to processing. Finally, after 7 months, it's agreed to, it's processed. But in the meantime, no one told the client, make sure you don't run up another new debt, because this is unlike anything else. And a lot of states will allow you to say, if you run up a new debt, they'll just roll it into an installment agreement. It's sort of like, sure, kind of your revolving line of credit. Not so with the IRS. If you run up $1 of new liability, it defaults the entire agreement. Ugh. And what you have to do, and then now you have to do something. You have to do something. Either pay, you're going to be paying. So when this installment agreement was agreed to, we put this in our video. The hidden ways the IRS is going to screw you over. You might want to watch all of them because there's hidden ways. They agreed to it. It was already in default. That agreement was in default the second it was signed, because there was an assessment that would have been due.
Crap! But he didn't know it, so he started making his payments.
So he was making his payments the whole time. Then out of the blue, he gets a notice from the IRS to say you're in default agreement. He can't figure it out. There's a number to call on there too. Hey, make sure you do this. And he's like, well, I'm not going to call the number. I'll call my friendly revenue officer who.
Yeah. I've got the inside take here.
My buddy.
Yeah.
He's a reasonable man. So he calls him. And he's calling, and there's no response to say, hey, look, what's going on here? What's going on? He's waiting to hear from him, and he's figuring, well, nothing bad can happen to me while I have my numerous phone calls returned. It's like nothing bad can happen to me. Hey, look, I tried to address it the best I can. They're not going to take some adverse action against me, but I'm trying to work on it. I'm trying to figure out a solution. What do they want? How to do this? And that's sort of, right, that's not too unreasonable. The notice said a different number to call. Well, that was sort of the issue. Revenue officer was no longer assigned a case. So he had really no incentive to call the taxpayer back. Also, this is what happens so many times, and I know we're going to probably do something more on this. We were just looking at some emails back and forth between the IRS and a particular case that were requested under Freedom of Information Act, and your commentary is like every email from an IRS employee to another IRS employee always starts with,
Sorry it took so long to get back to you. I was on vacation. Sorry it took so long to get back to you. It took a while for Jack to get back to me. Sorry, this sat on my desk. I was sick. I was on vacation. Literally, like every other email. Sorry it took so long.
Sorry it took so long. That's why they should start every email off default. Sorry it took me so long to respond.
It's part of their auto signature.
So, I mean, revenue officers are moved around. You have their phone number. He might not be there. He might be in another branch. And, a lot of revenue, I'm not going to say every revenue officer. Most revenue officers actually are looking for a different job in the federal government. They're always looking for something. And so they might take a project to say, hey, we're looking for some volunteers of people who want to do this here. And, you want to take it because you're like, oh, this could be my ticket out of here.
Yep.
And so you go do this project for months. But your voicemail, because the thing is you don't have any cases assigned to you, or you've made... you've made accommodations for the people there. So your voicemail is still active, but that's not the voicemail you're using now because you're in a different office.
Ugh.
It's not like a forward, it's not like a forward, the technology. So it's like blinking, your light's blinking. Well, who's there? I don't have any cases assigned to me. I don't have any. So who could this be? And that was the issue, is the revenue officer never got back to him, never talked to him.
So then what happened to him?
So then guess the IRS issued a federal notice tax lien.
Ugh.
You defaulted the agreement, and I tried getting this off, because now he comes to hire me. Like, okay, let me see if I can help you. Oh, man, you screwed this up good. Oh man, you screwed this up really good, because now I'm like, what are the grounds I have? In order to get the lien removed, I need to prove the IRS did not follow their own procedures.
Mm-hmm. But they did.
And the best thing I have is the revenue officer accepted and processed the deal while it wasn't current.
Mm-hmm.
Almost made it on that. But they're saying, but the taxpayer had to, the taxpayer was aware of those conditions as well, because somewhere in the fine print it says, hey, you're aware of this too.
Oh, that sucks.
And the revenue officer was actually trying to help us.
Mm-hmm.
I did get in touch with him, like, hey, what were you doing? Just a question, like, what were you thinking here? And then he tried to help, but they were like, no, we're not going to listen to him. We're not.
Their own employee.
Their own employee. Like, we're not going to listen to him. We're not going to listen to this simple mistake. And it's like, why didn't you call the number on the notice too? That's what I don't get. It's like, well, and that's what, when I'm in appeals, we're like, we issued the notice, did we not? Like, yeah.
We put the phone number
and the phone
on
number. Yeah. Did he call the phone number? No. But fairness? And this is the problem I had with this appeal, because sometimes you can bring a fairness argument into it. Mm-hmm. But the type of appeal I had there was a collection appeals program where I don't have that fairness argument. This is after the fact. His appeals, they weren't, I didn't have that one yet. So I had to go and, I couldn't prove it's illegal. So lien sustained. Okay. Now I had my other appeal, which was the more favorable one, where I was able to argue fairness. And then they looked at it and they said, okay, sure. Have your client come up with $50,000. And then we'll do it. And I was like, he doesn't have $50,000. Have him come up with $50,000 and show that he's current. Yeah. Hey, how you being on current? Well, I only owe this much. No, you actually owe this much. Well, that can't be. It's misapplied. You owe this much. And so it was really a situation where there wasn't the appreciation for what's required to avoid the lien. And that's when they ultimately said, this was sort of the argument back where they said, look, your client says that this lien is the most critical thing that's going to screw up his entire business. But the way he's been acting is like, well, it's not a big deal. I can handle this. It's been getting second fiddle. And that's so many times we're talking to people about solving their tax problem and they're not giving it a priority. Oh, I'll talk to you later about it. It's like, wait a second. This is the thing that can ruin your life. Maybe it needs to be number one priority, and maybe you're going to want to get an attorney because this will ruin your life. It is that serious, because it did. It actually did have the impact that we feared. He lost business, and now his name is soiled. Eventually, will the lien come off? Yeah, we'll probably be able to get it withdrawn, but the damage is done. And it's really humiliating for someone in the financial sector to have a federal tax lien against them. And there's other ways to get it off. That's why when you get a deal with the IRS, you do it once, you do it right. Do not screw it up, and understand what's required to make sure it is not in default.
Yep. Now, let's quickly talk about if you do qualify and if you don't qualify, what are some of the things you can do to get the tax lien removed? Is Chapter 7 bankruptcy a good idea?
If you don't have property, Chapter 7 bankruptcy won't necessarily remove the lien.
Okay.
The lien is against your property. In the Chapter 7 is removing a personal obligation. So that's one of the things why people sort of get frustrated with the law. There's an in rem claim, and then there's an in personam claim. The in personam claim goes away. That's against the person. In rem is against the property.
Okay.
So sometimes people file Chapter 7, and if there's property outstanding or property they come into, that lien's still out there. Now, the liens are not, a lot of liens aren't released. I would say probably the majority of liens aren't released, but they're of no effect. On the lien, it's going to say last date to refile. That's the date the lien automatically becomes of no effect. Still on your credit, but the IRS can't do anything with the lien. So that's really what happens in a lot of cases. They become stale dated.
Yep. Now, this one seems like it could be tricky, but is it possible? Can you, if you prove that the lien is putting your income earning ability at risk, so that's a possibility?
Yeah, and this is where you have to be super lawyer on this. Don't give them the vague claim. No, it needs to be specific. And you know what you need to do? You need to get letters from people too. Just don't make the claim, because because this is what you're stuck with, because you're like, well, liens affect everybody negatively. So if we don't file a lien against your client, then we can't file a lien against everybody. So you need to show something unique and special, how this affects you differently than typical taxpayers. And that's where people fail.
Now, can you get an offer in compromise?
Yeah, you can get an offer in compromise. And about 2 months after an offer in compromise is accepted and paid, you'll see a lien release. That's not a withdrawal, though.
Right, so it's still on your credit.
So it's still on your credit, showing lien filed, lien released. And when you're going for insurance policies, seeing a lien on there actually makes you a higher insurable risk. And it's actually true, because having federal tax liens against you does shorten your life expectancy. It's something to think about.
Yep.
Really is. It's like, do whatever it takes to try to avoid it. And if you do have one, take it seriously. It's because if you're not taking a federal tax lien serious, you're not really taking your life seriously. If you're not taking your life seriously, you're not taking your health seriously. So it is something where the actuaries are right.
Yep.
You're not going to have the same life expectancy. You're not going to have the same quality of life, because you're not taking the maintenance steps required to live a healthy, productive life.
Now, even if you do qualify, you have to be careful, because the nature of the IRS is very slow moving. You're going to want to follow up with them. You're going to want to be meticulous. You have to fill out an application for withdrawal.
Right.
You're going to await their reply. Do they have a minimum amount of time where they have to approve it, or is this something that can sit?
I don't know about the minimum amount of time. I do know that they could be sitting for a good long time. Okay. I haven't found one where we were able to find, hey guys, you had enough time, and here, with the offer of compromise, the IRS has 2 years to accept or reject an offer of compromise. If they don't, it's deemed accepted. I don't know of any classification there. When you file a withdrawal for a notice of federal tax lien, I don't know anything, but I do know things have changed dramatically from when I first started this. If you filed a withdrawal way back when, anything like that, you would be, 2 weeks in and out. But then there's a few things that happened. The IRS filed so many freaking liens.
Lien crazy.
They went lien crazy. And then the IRS hasn't been hiring the replacement staff. Where this withdrawal request goes is something called IRS Technical Services. And there's technical services places all around the country. And these guys are usually really sharp. They're really, really sharp. They tend to be, they're really up there with the IRS Office of Appeals.
They know their stuff.
Yeah, they really know their stuff. And now that time period, and when people are closing out houses, they don't want to hear, hey, look, in order to get this done, it's going to be 2 months. No one wants to hear that.
Yep.
And they're expecting, if you say, the range is 4 to 8 weeks, or they hear 4 weeks. Well, it could happen, but it's just, the IRS, there's no priority given to this, because it doesn't necessarily give them money.
Right. There's no
why
benefit
are we
to
going
them.
to right? This is a cost center for us.
Yeah.
So they're just, they're over. The staff there's overworked. So always be very friendly to these people, because many times they will be on your side.
Yeah.
If they can't do something, they can't do something. They will be on your side, but they have so many. They're overworked, and that's really why you need to get your. That's why you really need to get your claim. You need to have everything done for them so well,
buttoned up,
so that they can go. Yep, okay, move along quickly. That's
I don't
really
need anything else from you. I have all the information. You've crossed your T's and dotted
right,
your
and
I's.
you know what the standard is that we have to follow. You're not asking for something that we can't give.
Got it. And then they will let you know if they do approve your file. You get a withdrawal of filed notice of federal tax lien mailed to you.
Yep. And then the significance of that is now that lien is removed. The lien ever being filed is removed from your entire credit history. Now, if someone goes to say the town hall where I go, or some jurisdictions, the courthouses, the county courthouses are where land records are filed. They could go through and say, hey, look, looks like this person had a lien filed.
Okay.
But it doesn't go on a credit report. So yes, there's a way for someone to still find out that you had it. By the way, if you ever wanted to get Social Security numbers, they're still in there.
Yeah, right.
They're not blocked out. The full Social Security numbers are on old tax liens, still there. And then, but they also they give the last four of the social. I'm like, well, you could do a lot of damage with the last four.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's something that's sort
the
of
thoroughness of the IRS.
Yeah, so I would say if you have a federal tax lien against you, there's a few things that are going to happen. Not only are you going to get the junk mail, you're going to get people calling you. Hey, look, we could give you a deal on this. And like you get some crazy calls. I could settle this for half, guaranteed. I'll remove penalties. It's like, yeah, but the penalties don't even add to half. How does that work? So you are going to get a lot of scammers, and they're really good at tracking you down. They have ways to find your cell phone number. If your number's unlisted, and if you're a business, oh man, they're going to be on top of you.
So be weary.
And one interesting story, that because my clients have liens filed against them, and one time these people called into the client, and the client then said, "Oh, call Anthony Parent. He's handling this." So they call and they answer the phone. Parent, IRSMedic. Oh yeah, Anthony Parent. Call him, like, okay, I'm talking to this guy. I'm like, I'm thinking he's a loan. He's offering he's one of the, because I think we put something for a loan, so I'm assuming that's who he's calling from. And then they were telling me about all the miraculous things that could be done with this federal tax lien that were easy. And so I just let them go. And like, these people are completely lying. And it's like, wow, this would work, because if somebody wants to believe something is true, and here's the easy solution that's only going to cost you $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, guaranteed result, who wouldn't go for that? Who the hell would lie about something like this? Yeah. You can't lie. People don't lie anymore. It's like, oh, yeah, they do this all the time. Those people who are calling you on the phone get about 20% of whatever they kill. So if they get you to, get a credit card authorization for $5,000, that's $1,000 for them right there. And whatever happens to you, they don't give a shit. So they will tell you anything to get you to give them money. So that's why you don't want to deal with them. I mean, you have to be reasonable. You have to be reasonable. Are there ways to work around with the IRS? Yes. Is there a magic wand? Not really. Unless your magic wand includes work and diligence and hard work.
Yep.
And being realistic, then yeah, that's really your magic wand.
Got it. Yeah. All right. Well, if you are concerned about a tax lien, don't hesitate to contact us. You can go to IRSMedic.com for more information. You can also email us info@IRSMedic.com. You can like and comment below and subscribe to our channel for awesome tax updates. Thanks so much for watching. IRSMedic, the law offices of Parent & Parent, LLP. Real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.